Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and former publisher of the Wall Street Journal, Karen Elliott House, gained unprecedented insights into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its controversial leader, Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman, known to the world as MBS, through more than 40 years of covering the kingdom. House reveals a leader similar to Peter the Great, being both a relentless visionary modernizing his nation and a ruthless autocrat imprisoning his opponents, including religious leaders and rival princes. Relying on extensive interviews with the Crown Prince, members of the royal family, and his inner circle of advisors. The book The Man Who Would Be King explains in full how the man reshaping the kingdom came to be. With vivid, headline-grabbing journalism, House balances both sides of this complex ruler. We are introduced to the visionary MBS, who led reforms for more equal participation by women, encouraged tourism, and placed long-term bets on green energy and massive projects like The Line, a futuristic 100-mile city in the desert powered by artificial intelligence. We also meet the Machiavellian MBS, widely accused of ordering the murder of dissident journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and of whitewashing his image through major investments in global sports, from the English Premier League to the Live Golf Tour, to the upcoming World Cup that Saudi Arabia will host in 2034. The Man Who Would Be King unveils MBS in all his complexity, from his rise to power and vision for the kingdom to his tough moves to expand influence. A shrewd deal-maker, he is working to secure a viable agreement with Israel and achieve peace in Gaza while cutting taxes and improving living standards.
The tall, bearded young man was in a rush. He had a government to restructure and a nation to reshape. But first, he had to bury his royal uncle. In Islam, the dead must be buried quickly. So it was no surprise in Saudi Arabia that when King Abdullah died, his body was hastily wrapped in a white shroud and buried among his Al Saud ancestors in an unmarked grave at Al Ud Cemetery in Riyadh on January 23, 2015. What followed was shocking. On the same day that Saudis were mourning the late king, the new king's 29-year-old son, who was neither crown prince nor deputy crown prince, gathered 4 men to serve as advisors for the mission of restructuring his father's new government. On Saturday evening, he told them he wanted to eliminate several senior advisory councils and replace them with 2 decisive bodies. Older and more experienced ministers told him,
"Such a major change would take time."
But he said to them, "Take your time, but decide tonight." By Sunday morning, the group had agreed to eliminate the old councils, which had become graveyards for decisions under the previous king, and approved the creation of just 2 councils, one for economic affairs and one for security. MBS, the then relatively unknown son of King Salman, was soon appointed by his father to head both councils. First one, then both. By the next afternoon, MBS called the group again to discuss forming a new cabinet for his father, replacing about 12 ministers. Soon after, King Salman announced sweeping changes, issuing nearly 30 royal decrees. As the pharaohs used to say, "Let it be written, let it be done." This moment marked the public emergence of a young prince whom most Saudis had never seen or heard of. Citizens were used to elderly, quiet kings. For nearly half a century, Saudi Arabia had been ruled by the sons of the founding King Abdulaziz Al Saud, known as Ibn Saud, who had 45 sons from 22 wives before his death in 1953. Suddenly, here was a grandson of Ibn Saud, only 29 years old, stepping into the spotlight.
Who was he? And how did he gain power? We don't know him. He just appeared out of nowhere, with no known record or history,
said one concerned Saudi conservative, expressing the general sentiment at the time when King Salman appointed his son as head of the royal court in 2015. Within just 2 days, MBS had convinced his father to reshape the government into something more manageable by a single man. And he did it. Unlike God, who created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, this prince never stopped. Within 4 months, he became deputy crown prince. A year later, he became crown prince after persuading his cousin Mohammed bin Salman to step down, staying up all night to help write his resignation letter. 9 months later, he detained several royal family members and wealthy businessmen in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, accusing them of corruption. He recovered $100 billion from them, with punishments ranging from house arrest to prison. Suddenly, this once unknown prince became widely recognized. His young face and Mona Lisa-like mysterious smile were hung in every government building in the kingdom, alongside the stern image of his elderly father. But the man behind the smile remained a mystery. A young man in a hurry. That is how The Economist described him in January 2016. That same month, in our first meeting, I asked him if he really was a young man in a hurry. He answered,
"I'm young, and that's precisely why I aim to invest my energy in serving my people, the majority of whom share my generation. If urgency is needed to achieve a clear and constructive goal, I welcome it. But I have no intention of repeating the pattern of missed opportunities we've seen in the past."
He was referring to the past 40 years during which Saudi Arabia was ruled by old and weak sons of King Ibn Saud, men with no clear vision, and even if they had one, not enough time left to fulfill it. One of the aims of this book is to uncover what shaped this powerful prince, a man who is working sometimes without mercy to transform the kingdom, from a religious and traditional society into a modern state. A state he believes will rank among the world's top economies by the year 2050. If he succeeds without relying on oil as the main source of income, it would mark a dramatic shift, a historic leap for a country that stood on the edge of crisis when his father took the throne. It is a massive gamble worth watching, because what happens in Saudi Arabia affects the future of global economics and politics. Saudi Arabia is not just another Arab kingdom. It is home to the 2 holiest sites in Islam. It also holds about 20% of the world's oil reserves. These 2 factors alone give the kingdom undeniable global influence. But alongside these old truths, there are new realities reinforcing Saudi Arabia's central role in the world. Iran, a theocracy long aspiring to dominate the holy sites in Saudi Arabia, still pursues its nuclear ambitions despite the challenges. In contrast, the kingdom drew closer to Israel in 2023. The United States, once Saudi Arabia's closest ally, has begun to show less interest in the region, with decision-makers increasingly shifting focus toward what is called the pivot to Asia. Crown Prince MBS has now outlasted the last 2 American presidents. At 39 years old, he could remain in power for decades in this critically important country. His determination to play an independent and bold role on the global stage, under the policy of Saudi Arabia first, will certainly affect America and global economic security for many years to come. As for his impact on the kingdom, the changes are visible everywhere, especially to me, a woman who visited Saudi Arabia for 45 years, traveling across its regions in my long black abaya during the years of strict religious rule. I will never forget the moment I was ordered by the religious police to return to my hotel. My only offense was speaking with a male Saudi translator in a public cafe. We were not related, and at that time, any mixing between unrelated men and women was strictly forbidden. Not long after, a religious judge in Qatif asked me to cover my hair and face before he would speak with me about a divorce case involving a Shia woman wanting to leave her Sunni husband. According to the strict Wahhabi interpretation, a man should not be in the presence of an unrelated woman, and if he must, she should appear as a black, invisible shape. If a man was tempted, the woman was blamed for seducing him. The social and cultural shifts led by MBS under his bold and far-reaching Vision 2030 have become increasingly evident with each passing year. Nowhere else in the world has witnessed such a swift and profound transformation in such a short time. Saudi Arabia, once a silent film starring elderly men repeating old words without movement, now feels like a fast-paced IMAX movie. Saudis who once focused solely on the afterlife are now enjoying life in this world, without neglecting their purpose for the next. In meetings, Crown Prince shows confidence, charisma, and a willingness to engage. Speaking with him is easy, reaching him is not. Entering the Urqa Palace where he works is no simple task. The driver takes you down a dark, isolated road lined with security barriers. After several miles, we arrive at a small checkpoint, where several armed Saudis approach us. Surprisingly, they did not ask for my passport or compare my face to a photo. After a short drive through a tree-lined path, we reach the palace entrance, guarded by more armed security. Inside, more guards, advisors, and ministers were waiting to see the Crown Prince, most of them staring at a foreign woman in a black abaya. I passed through a metal detector and was taken to a waiting room, where men sat on chairs decorated with Arab motifs. As with all visitors to the Crown Prince's main office, I had to leave my bag and phone with the guards. I was only allowed to keep my notebook and pen.